On behalf of my wife, Karen, I'm Governor Mike Pence. I have the great honor to run and serve with the next President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. And it is great to be with you. Wow. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for taking time to come alongside this campaign. We are now approaching 100 days away from a great victory for all the people of the United States of America, when we will make America great again. You know, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat. Just a few short weeks ago, when the phone rang late at night on a Wednesday night, my wife at my side, and I have to tell you, this grandson of an immigrant, this third son of a small business owner in a small town in southern Indiana, can't even describe to you what that moment was like, how humbling it was for us. But we said yes in a heartbeat, because this is no ordinary time in the life of our nation. After 7.5 years of the failed leadership of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, we've seen America's stature in the world decline and an economy struggle under the stifling policies of this administration. And I said yes in a heartbeat because through our primary process, the American people in the Republican Party have chosen a fighter, a builder, and a winner who is going to lead this nation back, rebuild our strength at home and abroad, and that man is Donald Trump. I believe we will win. I believe we will win because we're running on the issues facing this country, and we're leveling with the American people about the stakes and the choice we have to face. In a few moments, I'm going to grab this microphone off the podium, and I'm going to take some questions and hear your comments and thoughts, and I'm grateful that you would be with us today. But let me share with you just a few thoughts about what I think is at stake in this election, because it's a clear choice, clearer than any other in my lifetime. You know, I think at the end of the day, our nominee and my new boss has tapped into the aspirations and the frustrations of the American people like no one in my lifetime since our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. I believe it. To be around Donald Trump is to be around a man with broad shoulders, who speaks his mind. He doesn't tiptoe around the thousands of rules of political correctness. He speaks from his heart. He speaks from his heart, and he understands that the American people are tired of what we've been hearing for a long time out of our nation's capital. We're tired of being told. We're tired of being told that this is as good as it gets. We're tired of being told by leaders in both political parties that they'll get to solving those intractable problems facing our country tomorrow. And as that 40th president said so well so many years ago, we're tired of, quote, being told that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can run our lives better for us than we can run them for ourselves. Donald Trump understands the frustrations and the aspirations of the American people, and he will bring real change to Washington, D.C. the very day he becomes the 45th President of the United States. You know, we've heard a lot of speeches in Philadelphia this week. And I got to tell you, I haven't heard a lot of them either. We've been too busy meeting with people in Toledo and Florida and Pennsylvania and Waukesha, Wisconsin last night. But I've caught a few of the excerpts, and I got to tell you, at a time when More than 7 out of 10 Americans believe that our country is on the wrong track. We have a president of the United States who stands up and says that we're already great. And you know, I love this country. What the American people like about Donald Trump is he's leveling with the American people. He's playing it straight. And he's telling us that with the right leadership, America can be great again, at home and abroad. But it's going to take leadership and determination like Donald Trump's to do it. And I know that strong Republican leadership can make a difference in a short period of time. You know, I stand here among these Michiganders, and I'm just a guy from down south of the border, Indiana. And we love the competition with you people. We really do. But I'll tell you, Indiana's a story about what strong Republican leadership can mean in a short period of time. You know, about 10 years ago, the state of Indiana found ourselves in the condition that our friends in Illinois still find themselves. An economy struggling under the weight of the heavy burden of state government and regulation, high taxes, running deficits and debt, kind of caught up in what the rest of America still sometimes calls the Rust Belt. But in Indiana 10 years ago, we decided to make a change, just like Michigan did, just like Wisconsin did, just like Ohio did, and even Illinois has got a Republican governor now. But what we showed in the state of Indiana is that it all still works. If you live within your means, if you balance your budgets, if you make the right investments in education and infrastructure and health care to support a growing and vibrant economy, and if you let people keep more of what they earn, we've cut taxes every year that I've been governor, it all still works. And Indiana's rebounded. And we have more Hoosiers going to work than ever before in the 200-year history of this state. And that's exactly the kind of leadership that Donald Trump is going to bring to Washington, D.C. when he's elected President of the United States. It really is extraordinary. You know, I heard my opponent in this campaign spoke last night on the national stage. And a lot of people have been talking about the things that we have in common, and we've got a little bit in common. Great families. We got 3 kids. We're both the proud fathers of United States Marines. But he was a little bit tough on my boss last night, so I thought maybe I'd set the record straight on him a little bit. You know, the comparison between us really kind of stops at the personal level. And he was a governor in this great state of Virginia, and I'm the governor of Indiana. He's serving in the U.S. Senate now in the Democrat minority. I served in the Congress for 12 years. You know, I often tell people if I only had 12 years left to live, I'd want to live it as a member of Congress, because that was the longest 12 years of my life. But so we got a little bit of the same experience, but let's look at a little bit of the results. Governor, when I became governor, we actually passed the largest state tax cut in Indiana history. We cut taxes every year that I've been governor, and by 2022, Hoosiers will have $3.5 billion in tax relief as a result of the leadership that we were able to bring to the state of Indiana. The minute he took office, Governor Tim Kaine actually proposed a $4 billion tax increase on the people of Virginia, where we in the state of Indiana have invested billions of dollars, $2.5 billion since I became governor, and to be remaining the crossroads of America. Governor Tim Kaine set out to fund roads and bridges at all new levels and just didn't find a way to do it. And frankly, where under our leadership we've seen unemployment in the state of Indiana drop from over 8% to 5% today, with record employment in the Hoosier state and a growing labor force, unemployment almost doubled while Governor Tim Kaine was governor of Virginia. So I got to think that Hillary Clinton picked just the right person if she wants to keep America on a path of economic decline, but we're not gonna let them. You know, the choice could really not be more clear. The American people can elect someone who will address the nation tonight who literally personifies the failed establishment in Washington, D.C. Or we can choose a leader who will fight every day to empower the American people, put our fiscal house in order, rebuild our military, secure our borders, and ensure that those appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States of America respect the Constitution of the United States of America. You know, I've gotten to know Donald Trump a little bit in the time that we've had together, and I'll tell you what, the man just doesn't quit. He's tough. He perseveres. You know, he's gone about as far as you can go in business, but he's never turned his back on the working men and women of this country. I think it comes from that builder background that he has. I've spent time not just with him on the campaign trail since I got this nomination, but I had the privilege before that of spending time with him among the people that work for him and work with him. I've seen the way he interacts with them. He asks everybody questions all the time, like a good leader does, and he listens. And I'm not talking about asking the political experts and the pollsters and the pundits. He just as often is asking taxi cab drivers and elevator operators and the guys laying the bricks and building the buildings. And he listens. I think it explains a lot about how he understands and hears the American people and why he is, without a doubt, I know in my heart, a man who is the right man for this moment for America. And another group that he's never forgotten, I saw in high relief yesterday. I was flying with him on that airplane of his. That was really cool. I'm not kidding. And he actually got me an airplane to fly around. I flew here in it today. It's actually, Karen and I were talking about it. It's a pretty big airplane, except when it's parked next to his. But you know, we made our way out to the airport yesterday, and a lot of police officers made a point to be out there. And we were standing with them. Donald Trump understands that the President of the United States is the chief law enforcement officer of this country. And as President, Donald Trump will support our law enforcement community at every level. He will provide the resources for our officers so they can do their job for our families and come home safe to theirs. He will be a law and order president from the first day he is elected. I promise you that. And those police officers know it. You know, for years we've had fundamental problems in America that get talked to death in Washington, D.C., but they never get solved, and they often get worse. And I spent my time out there. And I got to tell you, Washington, D.C. needs a leader like Donald Trump. A man who's going to come into that town and not ask how things work. He's going to ask why they don't work better. He's going to roll his sleeves up and work to rein in federal spending. I promise you, if you're looking for a president that's going to squeeze every nickel out of the bloated federal bureaucracy, that man is Donald Trump. And he's going to embrace and advance the kind of tax reform that will allow the real strength of this nation to be unleashed. Now, the truth of the matter is that there's an old saying in economics that, you know, what you subsidize, you get more of, and what you tax, you get less of. And Donald Trump understands that. And we're one of the highest taxed countries in the Western world. Donald Trump is going to put our fiscal house in order, and he's going to help working Americans put their fiscal house in order by passing dramatic tax relief for working families, small businesses, and family farms. And Donald Trump also understands that there's the taxation where I take your money and send it to Washington, and the other kind of taxation is where I tell you what you can use your money for. It's called regulation. And Donald Trump is going to roll back the avalanche of regulation that has flown out of Washington, D.C., and he's going to repeal Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel. You know, as this election approaches, every American should be reminded, and we need to remind our neighbors, while we're choosing a president for the next 4 years, this next president will make decisions that will impact our Supreme Court for the next 40. We all better think long and hard about what having Hillary Clinton make upwards to 3 appointments to the Supreme Court could mean to our Constitution, to the principles of limited government. You know, I said last week, elect Hillary Clinton, you better get used to being subject to unelected judges using unaccountable power to take unconstitutional actions. It's just how they've been operating. So let me say, if you leave here today with no other burden on your heart, go tell your neighbors and friends, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of our Second Amendment, for the sake of all our other God-given liberties, we must ensure that the next president appointing justices to the Supreme Court is Donald Trump. Those are the stakes. But it's not just issues at home about which we must speak to our neighbors. It's also about America's place in the world. It's extraordinary to think about the failed record of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton on the world stage. It's extraordinary. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has weakened America's place in the world. Terrorist attacks at home and abroad, grim and heartbreaking scenes from France. A Catholic priest murdered in his own church in France at the hands of ISIS terrorists. And the next day, 61 speakers went to the podium at the Democratic National Convention, and not one of them used the word ISIS. You know, history teaches us that weakness arouses evil. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's foreign policy of leading from behind, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, the rise, rule, and reign of ISIS are testaments to this truth of history. Whatever she has to say tonight, it's important to remember the facts. You know, there's that old saying that facts are stubborn things. We've got to remind our neighbors of the facts here in Michigan in the days ahead. Remind them that it was Hillary Clinton that helped undo all the gains that we made at the close of the last administration in Operation Iraqi Freedom. A staggering failure of judgment that set ISIS on the loose. It was Hillary Clinton who instigated the president's disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. And it was Hillary Clinton. It was Hillary Clinton who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi and then said, "What difference at this point does it make?" Well, let me say, as I've said before, as the proud father of a United States Marine, let me tell you from my heart, anyone who said that, anyone who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. So, men and women of Michigan, we have a choice to make, and it couldn't be more clear. It is a choice between change and the status quo. I saw those other signs. I like those better. I saw those signs in a few clips from Philadelphia that said, "Change maker." That might be referring to what you have left after paying all the taxes that you're going to owe if these people keep piling up the government that they're piling up. Okay? the real change we know is going to be found in strong, common sense, conservative leadership. And so we just ask you, we ask you to leave this place, I hope encouraged, because I certainly will, to see your bright and shining faces taking time in a busy week to come out and come alongside me and my family is deeply meaningful to me. People keep asking me, what's it been like for you, Mike? And I just keep telling them it's incredibly humbling to me. And I said it before, I'll close with it, before I get to some questions, and I hope you have some. You know, I've actually been to Ireland. I stood in the front yard of the house that my grandfather grew up in, a little town called Tubacurry. I think last time I thought of it, he had 8 brothers and sisters. They grew up in a 2-room house. And yet when he was a young man, his mother walked him out across a field where I've stood with my children. We looked across these mountains, they're called the Ox Mountains, looked to the west, and the tradition in our family was that my great-grandmother told him, you've got to go to America, one-way ticket, because there's a future there for you. And he came and he went through Ellis Island. He caught a train to Chicago, Illinois. He drove a bus for 40 years. He's the proudest man I ever knew. I was named after him. He was Richard Michael Cawley. I'm Michael Richard Pence. And I watched my mom and dad live the American dream. They built a small business. We started with a little house with a cornfield in the backyard. I watched my dad help build a small business, run gas stations. I was a gas station attendant for 5 years, helped pay my way through college. And for you young people, we'll explain later what a gas station attendant was. But I feel like I grew up on the front row of the American dream. And I had some big dreams. I actually dreamed someday of maybe representing my hometown in our nation's capital. But I never dreamed I'd be able to lead my beloved state as governor. And I never dreamed in my dreams that the call would ever come to serve my nation at such time as this. And so we ask you for 2 things as a family, and on behalf of the good man and his family who called me to this moment. We ask for your prayers. Pray for our family and pray for this nation. Because we're people that bend the knee, and I still believe that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, he'll heal our land. Thank you. Right after you get done praying, I need you to go to work. My fellow Americans, Michiganders all, we have a choice to make. We have a choice to present to our neighbors and friends here in Michigan and beyond. And here it is. If you want a president who will protect this nation, confront radical Islamic terrorism, and rid the world of ISIS, if you want a president who will restore law and order to this country and give law enforcement the support and resources they need and deserve, if you want a president who will cut taxes, grow our economy, squeeze every nickel out of the federal bureaucracy, and repeal the government takeover of health care, if you want a president who will build strong borders, enforce our laws, and upend the status quo in Washington, D.C., and if you want a president who will appoint justices to the Supreme Court of the United States, who will uphold our Constitution, we have but one choice, and that man is ready. This team is ready. When we elect Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America, we will have achieved that mission. Let's get to work. Let's make America. Thank you all very much. Thank you for letting me share that from my heart. I think we've got some people out there with microphones. Is that right? Why don't we start? We'll take a few questions. And whatever's on your mind, anything you want to ask about me or my family or our great candidate for president, I'd be honored to share it. Yes, sir, back here. Share with me your first name, too.
My name is Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Thank you, Governor, for your speech, your encouragement. Governor, I am a Catholic Christian, and for 40-some-odd years we have suffered from the scourge of legalized abortion in this country. I would like to know whether, and I hope that you and President Trump will do your best to encourage Congress to submit a bill that will allow us to roll back this scourge against our country and against our people, which I believe is just that.
I'm pro-life, and I don't apologize for it.
Thank you.
Okay? And I'll tell you, I couldn't be more proud to be standing shoulder to shoulder with the next pro-life president of the United States of America, Donald Trump. He is committed to the sanctity of life. Be encouraged. But it's part of the reason why those decisions about the Supreme Court are so important. It's decisions about whether we're going to appoint justices like Antonin Scalia to the court who are going to respect the Constitution. I mean, we appoint strict constructionists to the Supreme Court of the United States, as Donald Trump intends to do. I believe we will see Roe versus Wade consigned to the ash heap of history where it belongs. I promise. Okay? Over here? Yes, sir. Hi.
Welcome, Hoosier. We like you too.
Thank you
Except
very much.
when we play you in basketball.
Thank you.
I'm a senior citizen.
Yes, sir.
For 45 years I worked and paid into Social Security. I'm real concerned. It hasn't been talked on either side, and I want to know what you and Donald Trump are going to do to save Social Security.
Well, Donald Trump and I have talked about that. It was one of our very early conversations. And I'll tell you what, this is a man who keeps his promises. And we are going to keep the promise to seniors in America in Social Security and in Medicare. We're going to do it. No discussion. No discussion. The truth of the matter is there's a whole lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. And I guarantee you we're going to be going after it. But getting this economy growing again, controlling the waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government, and keeping the promises that we've made, not only to our seniors, but to our veterans, is something that is a heart-level commitment for the next president of the United States. I promise you. Thank you. Okay. Yes, please, go ahead.
Governor, I appreciate everything you and impressed with what you did with your state of Indiana.
Thank you.
I want to know what your role is going to be with President Trump in doing that for the United States of America.
Well, let me say we talked a little bit about that before I got the call. Because, you know, I know you can make a difference. I know you can make a difference as governor of the state. And one of the things that we talked about early on when he was considering a high-quality group of men and women for this position, I was honored just to even be on that list. But we talked about what the role might be, and I can tell you definitively the role will be whatever the President of the United States says it is, okay? But I do believe that part of what he's at least expressed to me about his enthusiasm for me in that role is my ability, based on my experience as a governor, in managing a budget, a $30 billion budget, in knowing other governors around the country, like Governor Snyder here in Michigan, Governor Walker in Wisconsin, and also knowing members of Congress as I do. And, You know, I was so honored when Paul Ryan introduced me, Speaker Paul Ryan introduced me at the Republican National Convention. You know, I really cut my teeth with the men and women in the Congress of the United States, and a lot of them now are in very prominent positions. Bill Huizenga, who's a congressman here locally, came by this morning when we went by the Kent County Republican headquarters. So I think part of the role that at least he's expressed on my play is saying, let's take the vision, let's take the priority, and see if I could help to translate those into practical policies that can be passed. And let me just say, all of that is why we must re-elect Republican majorities in the United States House of Representatives and the Senate. That's the combination. But thank you. Okay. Somebody over here? Got somebody?
Yeah.
How about this? There's a Marine right down here. I got a bias. Yes, sir.
While we realize the ISIS-Sunni threat is taking the highlight of a lot of what's taking place in the world, what about the Iranian Shiite? Like I said, with the agreement with Iran, which is falling apart, and I say this in a personal effect, I joined the Marines in '79 when they took our hostages. I watched what they did to the Marines in the embassy, and in Beirut, I lost fellow Marines as well as friends. And so like I said, ISIS is, yes, a threat, but the Iranian threat with that agreement is just as much of a threat. So what is the Trump-Pence ticket going to do to address that issue?
All right. In 1983 in Beirut, you lost friends?
Yep.
Right. My brother
A lot of guys that went to boot camp with the Paris Island.
Yeah, God bless them. God bless their memory. And thank you for your service
Well, thank you for
to
your
the United States of America. Semper Fi. My brother was in Beirut. He was a Marine. He's a lieutenant. He shipped out about a week or so before that. But a lot of people think the war on terror began with that attack. Yeah. It was the worst single-day peacetime loss in the history of the Marine Corps. 241 Marines. Well, what I can tell you is that Donald Trump has called out that agreement with the Iranian mullahs is a disaster. I mean, I heard one sound clip today where the president said he had achieved an agreement for a nuclear-free Iran. I just have to tell you, the only thing I know about Donald Trump is this is one of the best negotiators in the world. He is a broad-shouldered man. He is going to stand up to the enemies of our freedom and not take empty promises from countries like Iran. I promise you that. Okay? God bless.
Governor?
Yes,
Governor?
How about right back here? Yeah.
I got two things.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome to the beautiful state of Michigan.
Thank you. It is a beautiful state.
You know.
Love it.
And I want to know about the war on drugs.
You want to know what?
The war on drugs.
Well, you know, the reality is that drug abuse and drug addiction is no longer isolated to any one part of the country. It affects families in our cities and in our farms. In the state of Indiana, we've been leaning hard into it, and I promise you, and I just heard him talking about it yesterday, that Donald Trump is going to lean into the war on drugs. And the first thing he's going to do is he's going to build a wall and stop the flow of illegal drugs in a porous way across our border. Number one. It's number one. I mean, the second thing is, you know, we in the state of Indiana, we just did two things. In fact, I'm going to be breaking ground on a new facility in a couple of days. Number one, we just increased the penalties on people that sell drugs to our kids. I think we've got to get tougher on drug dealers in this country and those who profit from poisoning our kids. But secondly, we've also got to do a better job as a country to come alongside, and states are doing this, Indiana's doing it, Michigan's doing it, to give people the resources and the opportunity for therapy to break the cycle of addiction that's taken hold of people's lives. Okay?
And one more thing. Thank your son for his service.
Yes, ma'am. I couldn't hear you.
Thank your son for his service. My son was also a Marine. Semper Fi, man.
Thank you. I will. I will. I'll tell Michael you said that. Thank you.
Governor, behind you.
In the
here.
back. Let's go in the back. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My wife and I just a couple days ago got back from a lengthy trip to Asia, and you would not believe the economy over there. It's startling.
Right.
America, I think, has fallen asleep. You can't turn that ship around overnight. That's American money that's building over there. It's incredible. How can you turn that around and make the economy as the way it is over there, the way it used to be here?
I think it's a two. And talking with Donald Trump, he has no other view. Number one, we're about to elect the best negotiator in the world as President of the United States. We need to renegotiate a lot of these trade deals with the American people. You're talking about the Asian Pacific Rim. The North American Free Trade Agreement was enacted about 20 years ago. There were actually provisions in NAFTA that said it was to be reviewed on an intermittent basis to make sure that it was working for the American people and the American economy. It's never been done. It's never been reviewed. And so stopping and looking and asking the question of, is this still working for our country? You know, Donald Trump has come out very clearly that these multinational trade agreements like the TPP are not the right path. We're going to move into a time, reject these multinational agreements, and negotiate directly with countries on an individual basis to make sure it's a level playing field, to make sure that it's working for the American worker. But make no mistake about it, the other part of it is not just trade agreements, okay? But we're one of the highest taxed countries in the Western world. I mean, when I had, some of you may have heard about the company Carrier in Indiana. Abruptly, earlier this year, now I have this argument with Governor Snyder all the time, but I think Indiana's got the best manufacturing environment in the country. He says, no, Michigan does. We'll just call it a jump ball, right? But really, I like to say, you know, if you can't make it in Indiana and Michigan, you can't make it anywhere, right? But Carrier announced abruptly that they were pulling up 1,400 jobs and moving them to Mexico out of the state of Indiana at a time when our economy is growing and manufacturing is growing, okay? I had the executives come in my office and I asked them, why are you leaving Indiana? And the result was very interesting. The second thing they said was the fact all their competitors were already in Mexico. And that told me something about that we need to take a look at this NAFTA agreement and make sure that it's working for the American people and the American economy, right? But the first thing they said to me was about regulations. I'll never forget it. They said in the last 2 years, the Department of Energy had produced, I believe the number was over 50 new regulations in 2 years' time that just affected their company. That's about one every 2 weeks. And they essentially said, we just can't operate in this. So while we're going to negotiate much smarter, much tougher trade deals that are going to work for the American people in a growing economy, because we're an exporting country, Michigan's an exporting state, we know that trade supports jobs, right? Good. So we're all about free trade, but we want it to work for the American people. At the same time, I promise you, Donald Trump is going to cut taxes, cut regulation, repeal Obamacare, and make America simply a better place to invest and create jobs. That's how we bring it back. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Yes, sir. Yeah. We'll take this one, and then we'll have one more question. Yes, sir.
My name is Gary, and I'm from Benzonia, Michigan.
Hey, Gary.
I'm extremely concerned about voter fraud in this election. If I, as a U.S. citizen, has to have a photo ID to drive a car,
Right.
why in the heaven is there not photo ID to vote in the most important elections we ever vote in?
Right. Right. Well, I'll tell you what. I strongly support voter ID laws. Indiana was among the first in the country, and the Supreme Court of the United States upheld that. In the state of Indiana, it's not that you have to have a driver's license. If you don't happen to drive a car, we have a process for providing you with a picture ID for an individual to be able to exercise your franchise. And the integrity of the vote must be a priority in every state, in every community as we go into this election. And it will be. I promise you. Okay, how about, I'm going to go over here. How about in the scarf? Can I make you the last one? What's your name? Hi.
Nice to have
It's
you.
Mike to you.
I would like to know what plan you have to control Congress and get the lobbyists and big business out of their pockets and bring the integrity back to the United States Congress.
Right, right. She said, what are you going to do to take Washington, D.C. back for the American people and out of the hands of the special interests and the lobbyists who've rigged the system? You know, I got to tell you, I saw it up close and firsthand when I was in Washington, D.C. No, I was a Republican in the Congress, but I actually helped lead the fight against the Wall Street bailout back in 2008. I just told people, I said, I saw Wall Street, you know, come together with official Washington and end up transferring hundreds of billions of dollars to nationalize every bad mortgage in America, and the American people were the loser. And that's that rigged system we all sense, isn't it? And it's a rigged system that's going to be continued if the Democrat nominee who will address the nation tonight is reelected. So I have one answer for how we break up the rigged system of special interest, the status quo in Washington, D.C., and that is we work our hearts out every day between now and Election Day, and you send Donald Trump to the White House. That'll break up that system, and we will start over fresh with a president who will fight every day for the American people. I promise you that. Thanks, everybody.